A bat? Where? The bat soars into the air with a loud screech. Come here! We know it's you! Damn! Alright, we're back with many secrets and a weird stranger in the cafe. So 2 of the 3 friends we met. Also, we're playing Varney Lake in case you haven't read the literal title of this video. And in the first episode, we basically got to know the group of friends and their first and second encounter with a vampire. And now, years later, the journalist that we already got to meet in Mothmen 1966 is on his way to write another book about cryptoids, I think is what they're called. And so he interviews these 2. The third person has not yet been seen. And on the starting screen, we actually see a missing poster of him. However, in this cafe, there's a weird, mysterious stranger. So, well, let's see how everything, turns out. What else they experienced during that summer. You listen to them talking, and you think about the best way to arrange the material for the book. On the one hand, you have the activities they did during the day. All the things that strengthened them as a group and made the story more human. On the other hand, the first night at the vampires, a dinner that didn't turn out as the vampire had probably expected. You adjust your glasses, a habit almost as old as you. Why are you asking yourself all these questions? At what point had you lost confidence in your writing process? You'd like to write as you used to, one chapter after the other, without worrying too much about the structure. Books are nothing more than an act of accumulation, you said in one of the prefaces you've been commissioned to write at some point. Now nobody commissions anything from you. Aww. You'd had a hard time finding a publisher for the new book. And to think 10 years ago, any non-fiction publisher in the country would have paid astronomical amounts to have you among their authors. Whew. Finally a good sign. The story of these 3 kids had made you lose track of time. Would the same thing happen to your future readers? You have to excuse me, I'll have to make a phone call. I don't think it'll take more than 10 minutes. There's a phone across the street. Jimmy and Christine nod. Before you leave, you reach into your pockets. Oh, shit. Let's ask Christine. Look, I don't want to be too superficial, but she looks like she can lend a quarter more than Jimmy. Let's see. Always have some spare change. In case something happens with my son. Oh, well, has a son? It's only a second, but you notice the expression on Christine's face the moment she mentioned her son. It doesn't take a professional to notice the tension that still exists between these 2. Thank you, Christine. I'll be back in 5 minutes. 10 at the most. Oh, look, but they look... oh, happy. You know they won't miss you too much. Jimmy and Christine have a lot to talk about. It's raining outside and you think about the concept of the pathetic fallacy. Look at the eyes! It's totally... it's something, Was nature mourning the commercial success that your last books didn't achieve? No, I don't think nature cares about your books, to be quite honest. The funny thing is that you don't really care about money. Or rather, you're not interested in it as an end in itself. You just see it as a tool that allows you to continue your research and do damage control. You'd made some decisions in your career that you regretted, but you always tried to make up for it. Ooh. Your heart almost came out of your mouth. Xantos, you motherfucker! What? He knows him? You hang up the phone and the coin is returned. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? You let the air out of your mouth. Although you've seen many things over the years, terrible things, unimaginable for some, you can't deny that Xantos has indeed frightened you. What happened? Why did you leave the diner? Sorry, I'm the postal service in this house because I'm working from home. Why does the cable always get stuck under the chair? Can you riddle me this? Is it one of those physics things, like when the bread falls down on the buttered side? Because that's physics, actually. More density on the buttered side, you know. Anyways. Xantos seems nervous. And he doesn't need to tell you anything for you to know what's wrong with him. Go. But 10 minutes tops. Who's Xantos? You go back to the booth and dial Lee's number. Lee is Xantos' adoptive father. And your friend, you might say. You feel responsible for everything that had happened to him. Dude, that's loud. After all, Lee was one of the main characters in your book about the Mothmen and the 1966 meteor shower. I don't remember who Lee was. Oh, but we found a baby in there, right? Yeah, the couple. Didn't they have like... So Xantos was the small little... Aw, my heart. The phone rings. Yeah, think about that night in 1966. That's, you know, because it's been a while. Since that fateful night in late November 1966, Lee could feel the effects of every possible present at once. It's hard for you, Pixel Pulper, achievement unlocked. It's hard for you to imagine something like that, to feel each and every possible present as if they had happened. What impact would this have on a person? It was not a superpower, that much is clear. It was a curse. Lee's relationship with Victoria, whom he had married 3 months before their daughter was born, had deteriorated in recent years. Feeling all those presents where Victoria had lied to him, insulted him, cheated on him, belittled him, or worse, had been too much for Lee. And that was why he had moved to the other end of the country, and only you have his number. Yeah, she was hot on him, actually. That was clear. But also, he was also kind of... I didn't like him, I remember that. Lou? How many presents will there be, where it's not you on the other end of the phone, but someone else? Could these presents be quantified, enumerated for analysis? You shake your head, trying to concentrate on the conversation, and to stop thinking about all the possible ramifications that every act, no matter how small, may have. Did you think I'd forgotten? Lee laughs. And starts telling you about the last stories he read. Lee is a fan of crime fiction. He had given him several dozen issues of the Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. And you call him religiously for him to tell you what happened in the stories he liked the most. Lee needs to talk. He needs to be in contact with another human being. It was the least you could do after ruining his life. Ooh. What about my son? Is he learning anything? You notice his voice breaks when he mentions Xantos. You tell him he is. And he's helping you observe the people you're interviewing. As if he had been summoned, you see Xantos walking across the street. You cover the phone with your hand and call him. You say Jimmy's name and make a gesture for Xantos to watch him. Xantos nods, and you go back to talking to Lee. I don't want to take anything for granted this time. Lee doesn't respond, but you think you know what he's thinking. Lou? Thank you. Before you can say anything, he hangs up. You hold your head and take a deep breath. You had screwed him up and he thanks you. You think about the new book. The biography of a very special vampire. Will they be okay when they find out? When they know the whole truth? Christine has a family, but Jimmy... You know how much he suffered. It's impossible to foresee how he might react. Is the special vampire not the old man, but their friend? But isn't there a possible present for any outcome? No. No! The end is always one and only one. And you have to learn to live with that. Yeah, the idea that there's different versions is kind of... sometimes nice, sometimes not. But also unhelpful. Really. At all. Like, absolutely. Okay. Jimmy! Let's do this! I forgot all the voices, sorry. You think you exist, and therefore you do. This is nice, isn't it? But you'd rather not think, and exist without knowing it. So, what are we doing today? I don't want to go fishing. I don't want to kill the albino fish. Let's go to the general market. General store. After what had happened with Brandon, Doug proposed a new game to play to raise money. A game he had invented a few days ago. I call this game Hopscotch Dice Race. Doug points to some painted pebbles that he took out of his backpack, along with the boards and dice. The first thing you have to do is put one of these pebbles on your board. You can put it on any square apart from the first and last ones on the board. So the ones that are marked. Okay. Put pebble. There you go. Whatever, like. Now roll the die. Roll the dice. Shall we start? You got it too. Remember this number. To win the game, you have to move the die to the other colored cell. Oh, what's the other colored cell? Oh, this one. The die moves from one cell to the other. Why is he saying die and not dice? Is that an expression? Is that a nerdy expression for it's, or is it maybe dice is plural and die is singular? Oh, okay. Turning in the direction. Okay, moves from one cell to the other, turning in that direction. So each time you move it, the number on the die changes. Oh. To win, you have to come out with the same number you came in with. Oh, God. And I almost forgot. Before you finish, you have to pick up the pebble. And you can pick it up only if you have a 1 on the dice. Oh, yeah, I'm not. I'm sorry, Doug. This is a cool game, but not now. When there are no more pebbles on your board, you can go to the finish square to win the race. Dice race with hopscotch. Get it? The thing is, this is a game about vampires. And you know what? I'm more of a geek than a nerd, so I want to get on with the vampire stuff and not play dice. It's like, you know, priorities. So I can't pick it up. Oh. You have to pick up all the pebbles before you finish the race. Yeah, I don't wanna. Oh my god, I have to do it? Oh no, shit this. Oh. Okay. Hey! I have... Come on, that's bullshit, right? That is bullshit. Like, I should be able to do this just automatically. What is this, though? I don't want to play this a second time. I really want to just play it once. I do like this game. It's just... vampire, you know? Dice. Like, come on, you know? Yes! Oh, okay. Now let's race. No, Doug looks around the market square. There's Sue or Gary. Who would you rather bet against? No one. I wanna... Stop playing. What happened? Nothing happened. You don't feel like playing today. You get up and leave the bet money on the floor. I'm sorry, but vampire, also Brandon is gone, probably killed or, you know, horrifically, like, disfigured or whatever. I don't want to play. I'm sorry, Doug. I'm sorry, okay? Creature from the Black Lagoon. You have to see it. It's hard to compete with Christine. House of Wax, Invaders from Mars, The Thing from Another World. It doesn't matter what horror movie it is. She's watched them all. That's not fair. Your boyfriend works at the movie theater. There he is again. Christine's boyfriend. Is it really necessary to mention him so much? You take a deep breath and look up at the sky. The shape of the truck's hood fits perfectly against your back. And you force yourself to smile. Toad season, Doug? Doug raises his eyebrows and starts making noises with his mouth. Oof. You can't contain your laughter. You're disgusting. Doug laughs too. With a hoarse laughter, almost as if he were choking, sorry. You remember that afternoon of last summer very well. Doug had gotten a vinyl record he was obsessed with. You'd seldom seen him like that, and how he'd insisted that you listen to it. The record was part of a collection documenting the sounds of the world. Everything from distant cultures to meteorological phenomena. Doug wasn't particularly interested in the collection, but this record was special. It included recordings of toads singing in the middle of mating season. Could you please stop? Christine's anger only makes you laugh harder. Doug finally stops imitating the toads. The laughter gradually fades away and ends up turning into a sustained sigh. You look at your friend and think about what he confessed to you that afternoon. It was sad, but neither of you had older siblings or a father figure to lean on. What did he confess? What? That vinyl record with its songs of toads during mating season was the closest thing Doug had to a Playboy. Aww. What's that? On that branch. You see? A bat? Where? The bat soars into the air with a loud screech. Come here! We know it's you! Damn! Wait, are they the only ones in the cinema? How long have you been there? You're not following us, are you? I told you. I'm indebted to you. See? He's a freak. Wait a minute. Brand stopped bothering us, right? So? Are we good? The vampire nods. You can't deny that his presence at the drive-in bothers you a little. Does no one else notice? The drive-in is something for the three of you. Okay. So, but how? Do they do this on their, how do they get access to it? The Only Child's Club. The Only Child's Club? The question takes you by surprise. Wasn't that what Christine had said? That the vampire could read your minds? I'm an only child, too. Or at least that's what I thought. There's something in his eyes that forces you to pay attention. A sadness that you can relate to. And considering Doug and Christine's silence, you could swear they're feeling something similar. Yeah, but I want to know about, is he really an only child? The vampire tells you that he believed so for most of his life, raised by a strong mother and an older gentleman. But after the conversion, he had discovered that he was born on the other side of the Atlantic, and that he had a twin brother. However, his original family had given him to a couple who couldn't have children, and who were about to emigrate to the United States. Isn't that tragic? Two brothers separated at birth, and turned into two only childs. What's his real name? The vampire says that his name's not important, but that you can call him Liszt. That's a composer, right, Liszt? How did he become a vampire? How does someone turn into a vampire? He puts his hand on his jugular and remains silent. Liszt. The vampire just told you to call him Liszt. After listening to him, you can't deny he had suffered just as much as the three of you. Differently, though, right? What will the others say? Will they give Liszt a chance to prove himself as a new member of the club? Don't include a grown man. Look, he's even older than a grown man if he's a vampire. Into your child's club. No, Jimmy. No, very bad decision making. Santos. Ooh, nice. Interesting. Bop. Lou calls it goat Tourette's. You know he doesn't mean it in a bad way. As well as being your godfather, Lou is a writer. And sometimes writers use words like shortcuts. Your mom didn't like it when Lou said goat Tourette's. Oh yeah, was it a goat child? Oh man, I don't remember anymore. You had read about Tourette's. You understood the comparison. Doctors call the tension in a muscle group that the individual with Tourette's relieves with motor tics, the premonitory urge. It's not that difficult, Hula. Oh. Your case is different. The urgency is not focused on a specific muscle group, but rather in the whole of your being. With every kick, every jump, and every blow, you feel alive, as if all of a sudden the wheel were pulled back. Goat Tourette's is what allows you to bear being unable to show yourself to the world as you really are. As you were when your parents and your godfather found you that night in 1966. Goat Tourette's is the way you found to forgive yourself, at least for a little while. What? Ow! It's ridiculous. What am I doing here? Ministry of Silly Walks achievement. Aww. The spasmodic movements release the accumulated tension. Maybe like, you know, like goats have those jumping thingies, you know, the zoomies, I think. You call it when you have cats and dogs. And I think the same goes for goats. And for a moment you feel the veil being lifted. I'm Xantos, son of Victoria and Lee, godson of Lu. Behold the goat boy achievement. Now I'm a goat man. You breathe a sigh of relief. But you know the sensation won't last long, and you still have things to do. You wonder if Lou made the right choice in selecting you for the job. Santos, private detective. You hope to one day have your own sign on the door of an office downtown. But that's still a long way off. You nod to Lou and walk back into the Nyack Cafe. You're just starting. And for now your tasks are pretty simple. Lou asked you to watch Jimmy and Christine during the interview. And to follow Jimmy after the meeting. Your godfather told you that, after telling them the truth, anything could happen, and that you had to be very careful with the consequences of their actions. And you? Wasn't that what you were? The consequence of their actions? Aww. Don't be too sad, Santos. I loved you in Mothmen, and I still love you. Alright. The raindrops pound the roof. And you have to speak loudly to be able to hear each other. It's really coming down out there. Why does he feel the need to talk all the time? When you have nothing to say, you just stay quiet. It's really coming down out there? And why describe what everyone can already see? You stretch a bit. Do we go back then? Both of them nod. Jimmy seems like he's going to say something else, but ultimately changes his mind. Another of his astute observations. Your legs dangle from the platform. A gentle breeze caresses your arms. And you sigh. You wonder what you'll remember of all this then 10 years from now. And in 20? In 25? Let me think a little. You look at your cousin. Since the night you started hanging out with the vampire at the drive-in, the dynamics of the Only Child's Club had changed. Doug spends most of his time with Liz. And now that you have more space for just the two of you, Jimmy seems to have closed in on himself. Talk about Doug. I want to know a secret. I like my cousin's games, but I don't know. I always feel there's something missing. You regret what you said as soon as the words leave your mouth. Out of everything you could have said about Doug, why choose that? Something like what? Give an example. The 10 solitaire, for example. The solitaire? There's a trick to make Super 10 with 0 effort. Jimmy opens his eyes wide. The first thing you have to do is add up the cards of each color on the board. Let's suppose that the black cards add up to 31 and the reds come to 38. Take 31 from 38 and you're left with 7. 7 in favor of red. Once you know that, the only thing left to do is flip the cards from the deck until you get a red 3. And when that happens, you put it all down. The red 3 plus the 38 red cards on the table add up to 41. 41 minus the 31 of all the black ones, 10. Wow. I guess that's right. Like, I could get out my notepad and write it down and it would totally make, like, I believe everything, but it's after work. I'm not, you know, just, I would need a while. Why did you tell Jimmy about the trick? Shouldn't you have talked to Doug first? Give him a chance to improve the solitaire? You don't want to admit it, but finding mistakes in your cousin's creations gives you certain confidence. It's not just the satisfaction of finding someone else's mistakes. It's something else. Something you don't want to think about too much. A bad thing? Why are the female characters in Mothmen as well? They're kind of... I don't know. Because I actually like the female character in Mothmen. But now she turned out to be horrible. And the character I liked the least is apparently a good guy. And she also, apparently, like, what's up with that? What's the hang up here? We're not talking about our boyfriend. We know Jimmy has a crush on us, so... Who's Maggie? Who's Maggie? Can you talk to Maggie? Huh? If you talk to Maggie, Jimmy looks at you for a few seconds and finally looks down. She called by to give my mom something. That's it. His "that's it" annoys you. As if Jimmy thinks he owes you an explanation. Who's Maggie? Who's Maggie? Is it her mother? It might be her mother. Do you think what Liz said about the games is true? I'm sorry, what? Jimmy raises his shoulders. He looks like he wants to say something, but regrets it. I don't know if it's true, but I think it makes sense. I always wondered about the origins of certain board games. To think they're an advanced society's experiment to study us? It seems more credible than the idea that a random person could have designed something like chess. No, it really doesn't. It seems highly improbable compared to someone just coming up with a fun game. That's Christine. Mrs. Tinfoil Hat. No, not talk about it. Don't talk. Fuck. Mate and 4. Forced. They finally finished the game. You didn't know how much more you could take. You stand up and smooth out your pants. Doug starts picking up the pieces. Look how happy he is. He beat a child. He's like a hundreds and hundreds of years old vampire who probably had time to play chess 5 gazillion times. And he's happy that he beat a very small boy. One more. No, that's enough for today. Why don't you tell us one of your stories? Liz nods and you get ready to listen. Which story would you like to hear? Ooh, Godfrey the Glue Maker, Gilbert the Lumberjack, Milo the Thief. Man, I don't wanna... I will go to the Lumberjack because Glue Maker, it doesn't glue... Isn't that being made from, like, horses' bones? I don't want that. I don't want that. I'll tell you the story of Gilbert the Lumberjack. Gilbert wielded the axe as few others could. He lived a nomadic life, dedicated exclusively to work. Carpenters and builders adored him. One day, while chopping at a very thick oak tree, Gilbert heard a groan. He pressed his ear to the trunk. Could the tree be complaining? He removed the axe from the trunk and swung it again. There was no doubt. There was the groan again. Confused, he dropped the axe and paused to think for a few minutes. Gilbert didn't particularly like his job, but it was the only thing he knew how to do. He had estimated that if he kept doing it for 5 more years, he could retire and live in one of the small towns he had passed by. Determined to follow through with his plans, he picked up the axe and ignored the groans of the oak tree. But from that day on, Gilbert began to hear the sobs of all the trees he felled. Oaks, pines, firs, beeches, they all suffered under the lumberjack's axe. Ooh, I like this visual. Although it wasn't easy for him, Gilbert learned to ignore the whining. It was the only way he could keep working. 5 years later, Gilbert retired. He settled in a village and soon after met Estrid, whom he married. Estrid was slender and frail-looking. Gilbert loved her deeply. Before long, the young woman contracted an illness that left her bedridden. Look at this. She lay on her bed all day long, and Gilbert brought her tea and sang to her. Estrid grew weaker every day until one afternoon an attack of withering pain foretold her end. The woman kept writhing, crying and moaning loudly. Meanwhile, Gilbert was in the courtyard of the house. And although he could hear her, he kept carving, without even blinking, the figures of 2 lovers melting in a kiss on a sprig of oak. You try to imagine Estrid's last hours, and you feel sick. Do you want another story? That's it? Oh wow, Liz, that's just horrible. Oh! Okay. So, because he didn't hear it, because he had learned to ignore the moans. And maybe it was even foretold, you know, Estrid's death in the tree. That if he had spared the tree, he maybe would have spared Estrid's life. Oof. Okay, let's go with Godfrey then. This is the story of Godfrey, the glue maker. Godfrey was a glue maker. He made glue from horse bones and hooves. Yeah, that's like, I didn't wanna. His wasn't the best animal glue in the region, but he'd been very lucky. He sold the glue to a famous bookbinder in town. However, whilst he had built a very lucrative business, Godfrey had not been able to find love. He was a romantic, a true believer in the concept of the other half. One afternoon, crouched over the dead body of a young foal he had brought from a widow, he had an idea. After shaking the dirt of it, the animal had fallen off a cliff and crushed its owner. He cut off the horse's tail with a big pair of scissors, stood up and approached a mirror. He raised the horse's tail behind his head, and he liked what he saw. Okay. It was a new Godfrey, younger, healthier even, with long, silky hair. It didn't take much to make up his mind. Didn't he make animal glue for a living? A few weeks later, and with renewed confidence, Godfrey met the beautiful Isolda, a young woman who ended up being his wife and whom he loved fervently. One day, while Godfrey was in his workshop working on a hanging carcass, Isolde approached him from behind. She was smiling from ear to ear, as she had great news to give to her husband. But the moment she touched his back, something strange happened. Godfrey's shoulders dislocated with a red crack, and both arms suddenly shot back, as if powered by strong pistons. The hit landed on her chest. Godfrey turned around and saw Isolde on the floor, her eyes wide open. He ran to her and to his horror found that she was dead. What? He burst into tears, his face resting on Isolde's chest. Godfrey cried for a long time, unable to move. And his tears moistened the ends of the horse's tail he had glued to his head almost a year ago. Wow. You look at Doug. Doug looks at you and nods. Oh my god, that's hilarious! I only got it. I was like, what the heck is happening here? But it's because a horse, if you approach a horse from behind, then you get kicked. You get kicked! And because he glued the tail to the back of his head. Oh my god. Alright, another yes. Yes, let's go with Milo. Milo the thief. Milo was on the run. He had robbed the shopkeeper and was chased to the entrance of the forest. The chase didn't stop there, and an hour later, when the sun finally set, Milo was sure he wouldn't be caught. Without letting up his pace and always stretching his arms forward to avoid hitting a tree, Milo continued on into the darkness of the forest. After walking for a while, the thief ran into a jagged wall, and almost at the same time he heard a growl, closer than he would have liked. A growl, growl. Surely he couldn't have managed to escape from the soldiers only to end up being eaten by a bear. With his hands resting on the wall, he looked for a foothold so he could climb up. He was shaken, but the effort was worth it. The thief found the entrance to a small cave through which the animal would not fit. He crawled through the darkness and, too exhausted to do anything else, he fell asleep. Milo woke with the first light of morning. He looked inside and noticed that the cave was deeper than he had thought the night before. He squatted down and moved forward until he reached a gallery where he could finally stretch out. He couldn't believe his luck. It was the perfect hiding place, not just from the bear but from the town authorities. He looked around and noticed a group of mushrooms that had grown on a kind of mound. Mound? He approached and plucked one. His belly was rumbling. Don't just eat random mushrooms. Without thinking too much, he took a bite. He was surprised by his own recklessness, but it tasted so good. He took a second bite and his legs went slack. He fell to the ground, writhing in pain. He tried to crawl to the exit, to call for help, but only managed to let out a weak whimper. At first he felt his body burning, but then he lost all sensation. He was completely paralyzed by the toxins. Unable to even express horror on his face, Milo watched as the mound of earth seemed to move. It was not dirt, but a strange creature with colorful mushrooms growing on its back. The creature advanced a few feet towards Milo and began to writhe, giving birth to a dozen translucent, skin-shapeless offspring that began to crawl, opening and closing their mouths. And Milo, unable even to close his eyes or move his head to the other side, watched the hideous creature slowly swell as they ate him alive. He didn't quite know what to think. Was there a teaching to Milo's story? Thou shalt not steal? Curiosity killed the cat? Personally, I like stories where the line between good and evil is a little bit fuzzier. One more. We don't have one! It's getting late. Achievement unlocked storyteller. Yeah, all of those were amazing. I loved all of them. He's a great storyteller. Doug asks for one more and looks at Jimmy. Christine is right. Doug starts croaking like a toad, and you pretend not to hear him. Okay. I actually want to stop this episode for today and then I think this game is roughly 2 hours long, so next episode will be the last one, because I don't want this to be too long. It's in the middle of the week, you know, and yeah. But I think this is cool. Like, this was a short little... We had another mini game. I actually made it once, but then I stopped. I'm so sorry, but you know, you can play this yourself, because I think this game has so much replayability that I think it's very much fun. And I had the same... I think I said the same for Mothmen 1966, that I thought, because it kind of feels like you have a lot of different avenues, you know. And I accidentally skipped a few things in the last episode, you know, where we didn't go fishing and stuff like that. So, yeah. For now, I just love this so much. I mean, this just gives me so much joy, because it's very heartfelt, you know. Like, there's huge empathy for each character. You feel for them. It's very exciting, the story. It's so absurd. I mean, look, suddenly the vampire is like in a club and tells kids horror stories. That's just... It's weirdly wholesome. I didn't expect that. I did not expect it to be this wholesome. And, you know, that he also was so happy that he beat Doug at chess. It's like... the fact that he cares... I mean, this man must have been so lonely. So, yeah, and I don't have any theories. Except that Doug is maybe a vampire. Maybe the bad news was that he's ill. And then, you know, the vampire can basically repay the debt by... biting him, so at least he can live on forever, and the vampire then is not alone anymore, you know, because then he has a brother in a way. Maybe that's it. We'll see next episode. But until then, I hope you had a great time. Oh yeah, if you have anything to say about this game, you know, notice anything or have a theory, you know, no spoilers, but everything else, just hit me up in the comments, you know. And also, yeah, that's basically it. So I hope you, I hope you had a good time, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and maybe see you soon. Bye. This is my self-recorded outro song, so I don't get hit with copyright claims. If you subscribe to a lot of fun tutorials, reviews, and let's plays.